we're like WD-40 in a transaction. If there's a little squeaky, something squeaky going on with the attorneys, then I'll get involved and make that happen, make that adjustment and work with that attorney to make sure things go smoother. So oftentimes we're asked by sellers how we go about marketing the business. Sometimes they have somebody in mind that has approached them in the past that has shown interest in buying the business, and we like to keep the seller off the roller coaster. We want you to be able to continue business as usual because we really want the store running better than it's ever run. We want you to keep the store looking crisp and fresh and merchandised, and make sure that your employees are happy. Pay attention to the staff and don't worry about, is there a buyer? We'll go out and we'll find somebody through our marketing efforts. We use the internet to personal relationships, networks with our attorney, and a number of networking groups specifically to find buyers. And we've done a lot of transactions, so we have people that have done this before that have purchased stores before. So we really want you to focus on running the business, and we'll bring you in when we think we have somebody that's a viable buyer. I'm not going to bother you with every time that somebody says they have an interest or they raise their hand. There's no sense in doing that. You run the store and let us go out and find the buyer and start the transaction. So oftentimes I'm brought in when people are trying to sell their business mid-lease. They might have 1 or 2 years left in their lease, and plus some options and extensions. We have a lot of experience working with landlords. In the past, I used to sell restaurants. Not sure if people knew that, but I sold restaurants for years, and more oftentimes than not, there was a lease involved. So our skills with the landlords and making sure the landlord gets what they want out of this is really important. They're not just going to accept anybody that you bring to the table. You need to make sure it's the right buyer. So when we're using the match method, part of our criteria is to identify people that we think the landlord will be satisfied with and be willing to sign off on. Same thing goes with the license. We need to make sure that the license is going to transfer through the city. We want to make sure that the buyer is qualified and able to be licensed and of good character. So again, in the match method, the process that we use, we're identifying all these things up front. These are things that are hidden to most sellers that they don't see. They're obstacles that if you were going to do it on your own, you'd probably trip and it would cost you money ultimately. Buyers often ask if there is seller financing available. Our goal is to get 100% cash out of a deal for you. A tool that we could use to improve your profitability in the deal or your yield in the deal is to use seller financing. If somebody has the ability to come up with a decent down payment, maybe 50 or 60% of the asking price, it may be in the seller's best interest for multiple reasons to do seller financing. I'm not an accountant, but selling a business over time and getting paid over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, there may be a tax benefit to you, built in. It also would allow the buyer to buy more business than they have the money to buy right now. So seller financing, it's a tool that we use, but our preference is to get you 100% cash out on the day we close. Selling a business is very challenging, and we've been involved in more than 1,500 transactions, from restaurants to liquor stores to adult clubs. We've done everything. And there's nothing that is going to come up that we haven't seen. So we try to be where the lightning is going to strike. We're anticipating things that are going to happen so we can avoid them. And our match method, using that process, helps us identify things that could happen that need to be addressed. We don't like surprises. Nobody wants a surprise mid-transaction. So we make sure that we've got our I's dotted and our T's crossed before we get there. And we've got the right buyer with the right attorney and the banks, and have everything lined up so we can get this closing and it's done on time.